country who are going to make their own determination about a whole range of issues. It's not going to be narrowly focused just on contraception. It's not going to be driven by one statement by one radio announcer. It is going to be driven by their view of what's most likely to make sure they can help support their families, make their mortgage payments, who's got a plan to ensure that middle-class families are secure over the long term, what's most likely to result in their kids being able to get the education they need to compete. And I believe that Democrats have a better story to tell to women about how we're going to solidify the middle class and grow this economy, make sure everybody has a fair shot, everybody's doing their fair share, and we got a fair set of rules of the road that everybody has to follow. So I'm not somebody who believes that women are going to be single-issue voters. They never have been. And but I do think that we've got a strong story to tell when it comes to women.
Would you prefer this language be changed?
You know, Jessica, as you know, if I start being in the business of arbitrating,
About civility.
right, and what I do is I practice it. And so I'm going to try to lead by example in this situation, as opposed to commenting on every single comment that's made by either politicians or pundits. I would be very busy. I would not have time to do my job. That's your job to comment on what's said by politicians and pundits. All right. Lori Montenegro.
Thank you.
There you are.
Mr. President, polls are showing that Latino voters seem to be favoring your re-election over a Republican alternative, yet some of them are still disappointed, others upset about a promise that you made on immigration reform that has yet to come to pass. If you are re-elected, what would be your strategy? What would you do different to get immigration reform passed through the Congress, especially if both houses continue as they are right now, which is split?
Well, first of all, just substantively, every American should want immigration reform. We've got a system that's broken. We've got a system in which you have millions of families here in this country who are living in the shadows, worried about deportation. You've got American workers that are being undercut because those undocumented workers can be hired and the minimum wage laws may not be observed, overtime laws may not be observed. You've got incredibly talented people who want to start businesses in this country or to work in this country, and we should want those folks here in the United States. But right now, the legal immigration system is so tangled up that it becomes very difficult for them to put down roots here. So we can be a nation of laws and a nation of immigrants. And it is not just a Hispanic issue. This is an issue for everybody. This is an American issue that we need to fix. Now, when I came into office, I said, I am going to push to get this done. We didn't get it done. And the reason we haven't gotten it done is because what used to be a bipartisan agreement that we should fix this ended up becoming a partisan issue. I give a lot of credit to my predecessor, George Bush, and his political advisors who said, you know, this should not be just something the Democrats support. The Republican Party is invested in this as well. That was good advice then. It would be good advice now. And my hope is that after this election, the Latino community will have sent a strong message that they want a bipartisan effort to pass comprehensive immigration reform that involves making sure we've got tough border security, and this administration has done more for border security than just about anybody, that we are making sure that companies aren't able to take advantage of undocumented workers, that we've got strong laws in place, and that we've got a path so that all those folks whose kids often are U.S. citizens, who are working with us, and living with us, and in our communities, and not breaking the law, and trying to do their best to raise their families, that they've got a chance to be a fuller part of our community. So, what do I think will change? Well, what I will do, look, we're going to be putting forward, as we have done before, a framework, a proposal, legislation that can move the ball forward and actually get this thing done. But ultimately, I can't vote for Republicans. They're going to have to come to the conclusion that this is good for the country and that this is something that they themselves think is important. And depending on how Congress turns out, we'll see how many Republican votes we need to get it done. Nora O'Donnell, how are you?
Thank you, Mr. President. Today is Super Tuesday, so I wonder if you might weigh in on some of your potential Republican opponents. Mitt Romney has criticized you on Iran and said hope is not a foreign policy. He also said that you are America's most feckless president since Carter.
Yeah.
What would you like to say to Mr. Romney?
Good luck tonight.
No, really.
Really? Lynn, since you've been hollering and you're from my hometown, make it a good one.
My question is about the switch of the G8 summit from Chicago to Camp David. A reason given from the White House is that now you wanted a more intimate summit. People in Chicago would like to know, what do you know now that you did not know when you booked hometown Chicago for the G8 that led to the switch? And what role did security threats possibly play in the decision?
Well, keep in mind, Lynn, we're still going to be showing up with a whole bunch of world leaders. We've got this NATO summit. Typically what's happened is that we've tried to attach the G8 summit to the NATO summit so that the leaders in the G8 summit don't have to travel twice to whatever location. So last year in France, we combined a G8 with a NATO summit. We'll do so again. I have to say, this was an idea that was brought to me after the initial organizing of the NATO summit. Somebody pointed out that I hadn't had any of my counterparts who I've worked with now for 3 years up to Camp David. G8 tends to be a more informal setting in which we talk about a wide range of issues in a pretty intimate way. And the thinking was that people would enjoy being in a more casual backdrop. I think the weather should be good that time of year. It'll give me a chance to spend time with Mr. Putin, the new Russian president. And from there, we will then fly to Chicago. I always have confidence in Chicago being able to handle security issues. Whether it's Taste of Chicago or Lollapalooza or Bulls Championships, we know how to deal with a crowd. And I'm sure that your new mayor will be quite attentive to detail in making sure that everything goes off well. All right? Okay. Go ahead. Last one.
Thank you.
Last question.
Thank you. Mr. President, just to continue on that, when the NATO leaders gather in Chicago in May, do you expect that they'll be able to agree on a transition strategy? And are you concerned at all that the Koran burning and the episodes that have followed since then threaten your ability to negotiate with partners?
Well, keep in mind that the transition policy was in place and established at Lisbon. And we've been following that strategy that calls for us turning over increasing responsibility to Afghans and a full transition so that our combat role is over by the end of 2014. And our coalition partners have agreed to it. They are sticking with it. That continues to be the plan. What we are now going to be doing over the next, at this NATO meeting and planning for the next 2 years, is to make sure that that transition is not a cliff, but that there are benchmarks and steps that are taken along the way, in the same way that we reduced our role in Iraq, so that it is gradual, Afghan capacity is built, the partnering with Afghan security forces is effective, that we are putting in place the kinds of support structures that are needed in order for the overall strategy to be effective. Now, yes, the situation with the Koran burning concerns me. I think that it is an indication of the challenges in that environment, and it's an indication that now is the time for us to transition. Obviously, the violence directed at our people is unacceptable, and President Karzai acknowledged that. But what is also true is President Karzai, I think, is eager for more responsibility on the Afghan side. We're going to be able to find a mechanism whereby Afghans understand their sovereignty is being respected and that they're going to be taking a greater and greater role in their own security. That, I think, is in the interest of Afghans. It's also in our interests. And I'm confident we can execute, but it's not going to be a smooth path. There are going to be bumps along the road, just as there were in Iraq.
Well, are these bumps along the road, or are you seeing a deterioration in the relationship based on the Koran burning itself, the violence that has followed, that inhibits your ability to work out things like how to hand off the detention center?
No, none of this stuff is easy, and it never has been. And obviously, the most recent riots or protests against the Koran burning were tragic. But remember, this happened a while back when a pastor in Florida threatened to burn a Koran. In Iraq, as we were making this transition, there were constant crises that would pop up and tragic events that would take place, and there would be occasional setbacks. But what I've tried to do is to set a course, make sure that up and down the chain of command everybody knows what our broader strategy is. One of the incredible things about our military is that when they know what our objective is, what our goal is, regardless of the obstacles that they meet along the way, they get the job done. And I think that President Karzai understands that we are interested in a strategic partnership with the Afghan people and the Afghan government. We are not interested in staying there any longer than is necessary to assure that al-Qaeda is not operating there, and that there is sufficient stability that it doesn't end up being a free-for-all after ISAF has left. And so we share interests here. It'll require negotiations, and there will be time where things don't look as smooth as I'd like. That's kind of the deal internationally on a whole range of these issues. All right? Thank you, guys. Oh, can I just make one other comment? I want to publicly express condolences to the family of Donald Payne, congressman from New Jersey, a wonderful man, did great work both domestically and internationally. He was a friend of mine, and so my heart goes out to his family and to his colleagues. All right?
Nice talking to you.